This is good. Hey there, I'm Paula. This is How to Make Dinner. And if you're new here, I make dinner here every Wednesday. So if you're into that kind of thing, you should probably subscribe and make my day. So today we're making the easiest, simplest tomato spaghetti that changed my life. The reason it changed my life is because it's so damn simple and it just made me realize how important salt was. Anyway, we'll talk about it more. So we don't need very many ingredients for this. We need spaghetti, garlic, tomatoes, fresh basil, Parmesan cheese, olive oil, and salt. Salt is actually the most important ingredient in this whole thing. First off, I'm gonna heavily season my water with salt. It's vigorously boiling, and I'm putting like a lot of salt in. The way I know it'll be enough is because I'm gonna taste it, which seems really weird. But once you get it in, just taste it. If it tastes salty, not like the sea, but almost like saltiness of your tears, I guess, which sounds really sad, but then you know it's good, because that's the water that your pasta is going to absorb, and that's what's going to make the pasta taste good. And that's how you can get away with using so few ingredients and have it be the most mind-blowing spaghetti. So I have 2 portions of spaghetti in here in my hand going in, which is I went with 80 grams per person, which is kind of conservative. I guess I can definitely eat more spaghetti, but I think that one of the easiest ways to regulate your, portion size is by making the right amount in the first place, instead of just making a ton and eating it all. So that's gonna take 8 minutes or so. It's 11:31. So while that's happening, I'm gonna start building the sauce, and it couldn't be easier. So I'm gonna turn on this burner on medium heat. And I'm going to peel some garlic. So I have about 5 or 6 cloves of garlic here. And garlic is a pretty essential ingredient in this spaghetti. But I talked a bit earlier about how this changed my life. It really was the moment when I truly clued into the importance of salt. I'd been cooking for years when I learned this. And I was actually going to a trial shift at a restaurant in my city in Victoria. It's called Cafe Brio. It's a really nice Italian restaurant. And they put me on the pasta station, and this was one of the most popular dishes on their menu. So I made a lot of them that night. I didn't end up taking the job because I didn't want to work till midnight every night. But it was like I made it so many times that night and tasted it so many times, and it just really drove home the importance of salt, like seasoning the water, seasoning the tomatoes, so that it takes everything to the next level. I feel like I'm rambling. So I'm just gonna chop this garlic pretty roughly. I was watching Jacques Pepin the other day, as you do, as I do. And he was doing this style of garlic chopping where he was really like loosely holding the knife and kind of, I think it was like that. Anyway, it's pretty cool. It's kind of like double time. You're getting like the rock on both sides. I feel like this is already a kind of a weird episode. Okay, so garlic's chopped. Next up, I'm gonna chop a very, very juicy ripe tomato. So if I were to say like the 5 pillars of this spaghetti, what make it so good, it's the salt, the proper use of salt, lots of garlic, the juiciest tomatoes you can find. I will never make this when it's not summertime, when the tomatoes are subpar. Tomatoes are key here. So you want a really ripe, this is almost too soft. It's on its way to being rotten, quite frankly. but that's gonna make it perfect here. Take out this core, and I'm just gonna roughly chop this. You can use cherry tomatoes too. You can use any tomatoes as long as they're really good. Local is best. It's one of those things that nothing beats a garden grown tomato. It's just the best thing in the world. My knife's a bit dull. See how I'm sawing this tomato? That means it's time to sharpen my knife. So I could probably get away with just one because it's gigantic, but I'm also gonna do like half of this guy just for the variety of color. And I'm gonna stir my noodles. So those have been in for about 4 minutes. So I think that's about time to start building the sauce. So olive oil, extra virgin. We're putting a fair amount in because this is going to be a pretty important part of the sauce too. When you're cooking with so few ingredients, each ingredient has to be at its absolute best. So like great garlic, great tomatoes, good olive oil. The basil I'm using is straight from the garden. And you're just gonna, everything's gonna shine. Gonna be delicious. So there goes the garlic, and I want the garlic to have a little bit of time on its own, but be ready with the tomatoes because garlic burns really easily. So as soon as it starts to sizzle, I'm gonna put the tomatoes in. And then more salt. So a hefty pinch of salt into the tomatoes. I'm not measuring, but this is one of those things you're gonna keep tasting it. So the thing about using fresh tomatoes in a sauce is that they start off really watery, and you'll make the sauce and it'll be like watery, 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 and like, is this ever gonna come together? And then there's this pivotal moment where the pectin in the tomatoes starts to come out, and it just creates this kind of glossy coating on the pasta, and it's that moment that you stop. So we'll see if we can hit it. You know, tear the basil, chop the basil. I guess I'll tear it because it's seems more humane somehow. Sometimes when I'm lazy I just chop it because it's faster, but I guess we're doing a YouTube video, so I shouldn't do the lazy version. I make this spaghetti every summer now. That shift at that restaurant that I did was, I think it was like 7 years ago or something, and I've made this spaghetti consistently every summer since then, many times. So the noodles should be about done. Give them a taste. Like pretty close. That's perfect. I have a little tip for draining pasta. You know how you're supposed to keep the pasta water so that you can add a little bit in to make the sauce come together? My tip is you get a nice big wide measuring jug and stick that in the sink that you're gonna drain your pasta into. And then you set the colander that you're draining it in just right on top of the measuring jug so that it'll catch any of the nice seasoned starchy water on its way into the sink. Okay, so I'm gonna drain this. And then the pasta and the water are coming with me, and the pasta is going straight in. And now I'm gonna switch to tongs because it really helps. Oh, don't shuffle these around when you're using an induction burner because it'll beep at you. I'm gonna turn it up a tiny bit, and this is the moment when you wanna pay attention to what's happening to the juices. So the tomatoes are just breaking down. They're still intact, they're still pieces, but they're just starting to kind of disintegrate a bit. And everything's getting saucy. And at this point, I'm gonna add in the basil. Oh, so stoked. And I'm gonna give it a taste. So, it's so perfectly seasoned. And I don't know if you can see that, but the sauce is forming. It's like this thick tomatoey, pectin kind of starchy coating on the noodles. And I don't even need any of the water, I don't think. So I'm gonna leave that this time. And I'm gonna turn it off and put it on a plate. So that was truly like a 10-minute dinner. No exaggerating. And it's freaking perfect. Look at that. So it's a summer evening, you're sitting outside, got a nice glass of maybe like a light red wine, like a Pinot Noir. I'll have to ask my wine friends what they would have with this. And make sure you get a lot of that juicy, thick, saucy, tomatoey goodness on top. Okay, the hell with it. We're getting the whole thing on plates here. So this would taste like nothing if it didn't have, if it wasn't perfectly seasoned the whole way through. It would just be like tomato, you know, tomatoes and noodles. But the salt in the water, the salt on the tomatoes, the good olive oil, everything was cooking in. And then we're gonna finish it with some parm, which I guess we'll use this thing. I didn't even use pepper. So people are real salt and pepper people. It's a lot of salt and pepper on everything. I don't really use pepper on everything. I don't use it the way I use salt. Pepper to me is a spice, whereas salt is a seasoning. Anyway, maybe that's another episode. So that's it. That's our dinner for two. I'm gonna finish it with a tiny bit more olive oil because I think it's cool. And we're gonna dig in. Look at that. Look how good. I don't have any crusty bread available, but oh my God. I feel like that's the best one I ever made. So that's it. That's your easy tomato spaghetti. Totally changed my life, changed the way that I cook. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you next Wednesday when we make something else really good. So see you then. It's so good. It's delicious. You're starving?